What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes. This is going to be my in-depth analysis and review of Muarim and the builds that you can run on him for different game modes like PvE, Arena, and Aether Raids. So Muarim is a 182 BST blue infantry beast unit. He has got his preferred weapon, Wild Tiger Fang, and this provides him with +3 attack. At start of turn, he can inflict -6 debuff to all stats of the opponents who are present within 4 spaces of him. And keep in mind that this is not like a menace debuff, this is like a super threaten debuff. So every single opponent that is going to be within 4 spaces of him is going to get debuffed, and that is amazing support. Even if Muarim is not entering the combat, at the very least he can debuff the foes in a huge range and still provide support to your team. Muarim also gets +6 attack and speed during the combat and can neutralize any kind of visible buffs of the opponent. This means that he has no need of running a lull skill in his slot B, and if you're going to be using him in Arena, then it is going to be extremely useful because people are going to be using rally skills there, and a lot of skills like bonus doubler, the ideal skills, do depend on the visible buffs of the opponent. So consistently ignoring the visible buffs of the opponent is really useful. And finally, he has got the most unique transformation effect out of any beast in the game. So Muarim cannot transform on turn 1 and 3. And it doesn't matter if he's beside a dragon or beside a human, he will transform on turn 2, turn 4, and all of the other turns. It's just turn 1 and 3 where he's not going to be able to transform and get these effects, which is honestly not that bad because a lot of people don't really use beast units because of their transformation conditions. And Muarim having this unique transformation means that it's a lot easier to fit him into a lot of different teams, especially in Arena. So if he transforms, he can get +2 attack and does 7 true damage when his special triggers. He also gets the tempo skill when he's transformed, and just as a recap, a tempo skill pretty much ignores any kind of guard effect of the enemy and also ignores any kind of special acceleration that they might have. This tempo skill means that he can use his specials consistently and also stop any kind of special acceleration on the opponent. And finally, after the combat, if he attacked, then he takes 5 recall damage. So this recall damage could be annoying for some people, but you can also use this productively in certain game modes, as you'll see later on. So this weapon overall is really amazing for a free-to-play unit because not only can help him in combat with the true damage, extra offenses, and the tempo skill, but can also help you support your allies with the visible debuffs. And this means that he has really good synergy with the units who have debuff abusing weapons. For example, if you use him with Hilda, then she can get 24 true damage right off the bat with her weapon. And if you're using any kind of Plagian weapon, like Plagian Axe on Ninja Shamir or something like that, then you don't really need to have a menace skill on that unit. Muarim can support your units with the debuff, and if you're using a unit who has the full Plagian effect like Guntra or Mail Morgan, then they can benefit a lot by having Muarim on their team. And this weapon also allows for better flexibility when it comes to team building because you don't really have to run beast units and dragon units for him to transform. Muarim's stat spread is also pretty amazing, having 43 base attack, which is really good, and having 40 base speed, which is definitely amazing for a free-to-play unit, especially with a super boon. Now unfortunately, beast units do not have access to the damage reduction skills, and you pretty much have to run Speed Smoke 4 if you want to get that, but still having the speedy beast unit is really good, and his defense is kind of workable, but I wish he got some extra bulk from his weapon because his HP is pretty nice at base 45. And if you compare him to the other beast units, then you can pretty much see that he's one of the best, if not the best, free-to-play beast unit that we have got. Because while Kai'Sa and Neo Keaton can have a lot of bulk, they are very slow, so they have to run quicker post, and they also get countered by null follow-up. Naesala is fast, but Muarim actually ends up having more base speed than Naesala, and he might be getting a weapon refine next month, so we'll have to see how Naesala changes things up. And Pain is also someone who has to get the weapon refine, but until then Muarim actually ends up being a really solid unit, and compared to all of the other beast units, he scores the best at 185 BST. And that's one of the best things about Muarim being a blue unit, because we had a lot of scarcity when it comes to being a high scoring arena unit who was blue. We pretty much just only have Benny as the other option who can score 185 BST. There are some other grail units and free-to-play units as well, but they don't really score that high, and nowadays in Arena scoring is extremely important, so having the best scoring option on a free-to-play unit, especially in a color where we don't really get too many options, is really good. We have Yanfei in the red color, we have so many green units, but now we have a blue free-to-play unit who can work in Arena. Muarim's fodder is unfortunately quite underwhelming. He just provides Wrath, which we have seen on many units, and he also has even attack wave, which is definitely not something you should be running on a more invested build. And overall, Muarim ends up being a pretty nice free-to-play unit who has got good base stats and also has a pretty nice preferred weapon that actually has a lot of usage in combat and also for supporting. And compared to the other beast units, you can easily use him on your different teams, and that is one of the main benefits of running Muarim, especially in Arena, because not many people run a full beast team or full dragon team in their Arena core. And running him with the other allies who can abuse the debuffs is going to be really good. Unfortunately, Muarim doesn't have any kind of effect in this weapon that he himself can abuse the debuffs with, so you have to run allies like Hilda, Gunthra, or Mail Morgan, Aversa, units like those who can take the advantage of the debuffs productively. And of course, because he does the debuffs, it is going to be pretty annoying to face any kind of Fallen Ike or any kind of Unity skill because they're going to be getting the extra stats by using Muarim's debuffs. Some people might not want to invest into Muarim because beast units can be clunky at times, and because he cannot transform on turn 1 and 3, that might just limit his usage in some of the game modes. Like if you want to initiate turn 1, you're not going to be getting the advantage of his transformation effect, so some people might not really like it, even though he has the most flexible transformation condition out of any other beast unit. He also has less skill options because of being a beast unit. He cannot have access to Ruptured Sky, does not have access to the damage reduction skills, and if he wants to have the damage reduction skill, then he has to run Speed Smoke 4, which is quite expensive. And if you're going to be using him in Arena, then Ruptured Sky enemies are going to be really annoying. So Ruptured Sky does give them more damage on Muarim, so it could be hard at times to survive hits with them, especially some insanely plus 10 merge duo units, as you'll see with some of the builds. I'm actually really happy that we got Muarim, who's not only a pretty nice character, but also a really solid free-to-play unit who could be used in Arena, and I myself have been struggling to find a blue unit to invest into. I still have been using Gwendolyn in Arena, so it has been a struggle, and I'm definitely going to be investing into Muarim to plus and merge so that I can at least have some kind of soft check to Duochrome. And yeah, we're going to be talking about Duochrome a lot more later. So if you want to build up Muarim on a budget, then you can simply give him Fury 3, and this can stack up with the recall damage of his weapon and pretty much help you be in the Wrath range a lot easier. And you can also run Desperation if you want to, so that he can use the chip damage productively. But if you want to invest a bit more into him, then he can have a more offensive skill like Attack Speed Solo and also run that same as the Sacred Seal. I feel like the best slot B skill for Muarim is going to be Null Follow-Up, because he doesn't have access to the damage reduction skills. He doesn't want to run lull skills because he can already ignore the visible buffs of the opponent with his weapon. So by the elimination, Null Follow-Up just ends up being the best skill with his high speed and the fact that there are a lot of units who have follow-up negation and auto follow-up weapons, so this allows him to use his speed productively. And then the slot C is a lot flexible. You can run Drive Attack just to support your allies, or maybe run Speed Smoke 4. Any of those skills can work. It's really flexible, and you can use Moonbow or Glimmer. Glimmer can also be a nice option because his attack is actually pretty high, so it could be helpful, but Moonbow does help you against the high defense opponents, especially the ones which have the debuff neutralization skills, especially the armor units. So the defense debuff isn't really going to be helping you much there, so Moonbow can help. And then you can also run him with sacrificing your Brave Marianne, because you can make use of attack speed unity really well, and Muarim can function in both phases, so having this kind of skill can be really nice. And you can also run Mystic Boost as the Sacred Seal because he's going to be taking that chip damage, and a lot of people really dislike the chip damage aspect. So Mystic Boost is pretty much the way of negating that. And Speed Smoke 4 is amazing slot skill for Muarim because with this, at least you can get that 40% damage reduction that is based on his speed. And the debuff of Speed Smoke is kind of redundant because you can already debuff the opponent, but we're mainly going to be running Speed Smoke here for the damage reduction, which beast units cannot have access to outside of this skill, or you run someone like Flane or Elimine. So this is more self-sufficient way basically. You can also use him with a more player phase build with Surge Sparrow, and the tempo skill is really amazing with Surge Sparrow because it allows you to spam your specials a lot more reliably than a lot of the other units. And I want to mention even Tempest as a really nice slot C option, which has good synergy with its transformation. So you can transform on turn 2 and turn 4, and you can just go ham on those turns by getting the extra effects and also getting the even Tempest buff. So this is a player phase build, just stacking up all of his offenses and making sure that he can heal up the HP with Surge Sparrow, and with Null Follow-Up and the Tempo skill, there's really not much that is going to be stopping him from triggering his special. And with Surge Sparrow build, you can run a 2-turn special like Glimmer on Moonbow, and if you want you can also run a higher cooldown special, but then you'll have to run Flashing Blade so that you can trigger that in a single round of combat. Muarim can also be run with Distant Dart, and when he's going to be getting the damage reduction, he's in a better position to tank hits, especially from the ranged threats. And Distant Dart and Sweet Smoke are extremely expensive options, but if you're a big fan of Muarim, then this could be a build that you can run on him so that he can function in both phases, and especially excel in the enemy phase with that damage reduction and the Distant Dart skill. And Mystic Boost is going to be pretty nice for the self-sustain. You can also use him in Arena as a high scoring option. Now there are two kinds of builds that you can run on Muarim depending on your Arena core and which kind of units you want to take on and actually have an easier time with. Even though Muarim doesn't really get any kind of extra bulk out of the weapon and he doesn't have the highest resistance, Distant Counter is still an option so that he can take on some of the physical ranged threats, and even against the magical threats that he has weapon strangle advantage against, he can one-shot with this build by running Time Pulse and Blue Flame. After seeing Muarim, you might think that he's going to be helping you with Duo Chrom, and he certainly does in some matchups, but it is going to be really close if you're going to be facing some kind of max investment Chrom at plus 10 merge. And keep in mind that this is a close salvo Chrom. He's not even running a skill like Sturdy Impact or anything that can give him even more attack. And if that's going to be happening, then Muarim simply dies. So Muarim is not present in the duel simulator now, so I just improvised by substituting him with Nyla, and I tried my best to get this calc because it is a very important matchup for Arena, and without this you cannot really, try and build him for Arena. So a lot of people have really tough time facing Duo Chrom, especially with the free-to-play units, because he just has the Deadeye and he cuts through the damage reduction, he just kills units, and even like a blue unit like Muarim who doesn't have the lowest defense is still going to be struggling to survive a hit from him, and you pretty much have to run Steady Breath to survive. There are definitely going to be other options that you can increase his defense with, like running Distant Foil and giving him drive defense support from the allies, running Distant Guard on your other allies, because your allies don't really need to run the menace skills or anything like that to get the debuffs. Muarim can pretty much compensate for that, and maybe they can run drive defense and skills that can support Muarim to survive this really important matchup. And if you can do that, then you can still run Darting Breath just to get more speed, and having Time Pulse and Blue Flame is pretty much going to be your most consistent option of getting the kills. And then with the Breath Sacred Seal, you can instantly retaliate back with the special, and because of the Tempo skill, there's not much that is going to be stopping you, and you also have access to the true damage, so your one-shot potential actually becomes pretty good with Muarim and his high base attack. So this is definitely something I can recommend. So yeah, Duo Chrom matchup is definitely pretty tough, especially against the very max invested Duo Chrom. If you use some kind of defensive tile or some support with your allies, it could make it easier for you at the very least. So Muarim is not like a very consistent or reliable counter to Duo Chrom, but still he can function as a soft check depending on the support that you can give to him. And that's pretty good for me because I have no unit who can take on Duo Chrom in my Arena core. So I'm pretty much going to be building him with this build, and I'm going to be keeping all of those factors in mind. But if you don't really care about Duo Chrom and you have some other unit who can take him on, then you can definitely run a more melee build with Kestrel Stance so that he can get the guard effect and focus on his melee matchups and still retaliate back with Blue Flame and have a really good one-shot potential. You don't really have to go with the Speed IV because he can still score 185 BST, but in Arena there are just so many fast opponents that having that Speed IV is really good. And if you have the Ascended Floret, and if you just want to ascend some IV, then Defense IV is something I would recommend, just so that you can have an easier time taking on Duo Chrom, or just tanking the physical matchups basically, because Muarim doesn't get any extra stats for his defense, so Ascended Defense IV could be pretty good. And if you just want to focus on the one-shots, then Ascended Attack IV could work. I do prefer having a bit more bulk with Muarim because he has not a lot of trouble one-shotting things, so having a bit more defense does help with the survival. So yeah, Muarim is pretty much the closest free-to-play unit who can kinda survive Duo Chrom because of his weapon strangle advantage and the dull all effect in his weapon, which ignores the visible buffs. So at least Chrom is not at its full strength, and if the Chrom is getting some kind of duo peony buff or crossbar attack, then yeah, it's gonna be hard for Muarim to survive, but you'll definitely have to invest with some support so that you can have an easier time with this matchup. A lot of free-to-play units might look really good on paper for arena usage, but when you actually enter the arena against these premium units, these duo units with insane weapons and skills, then a lot of these free-to-play units are barely surviving. Like even Yanfei has a lot of trouble facing Ninja Korin in arena. Despite the damage reduction and the weapon strangle advantage, it doesn't really mean much against these really strong premium units that you'll have to face constantly, but at the very least, these units can score higher and can kind of survive with the support, so that's pretty much going to be your silver lining as a free-to-play arena option. Muarim is used best in Aether Raids offense with a Gale Force build. There are just way better tank options that he can run, like the safe tanks, so Muarim can just double down with the niche that he has with the tempo skill built into his weapon and be a very reliable Gale Force unit by ignoring the guard effect. Time Pulse is going to be the most important skill here so that he can function with a 4-turn Gale Force and still trigger Gale Force against the ranged opponents. And Flashing Blade here is going to be the best way to charge up his specials. You can run Heavy Blade, but overall it's a lot easier to trigger Flashing Blade than it is to trigger Heavy Blade, especially against some really good teams who have a lot of attack range skills or Duopini and all of that jazz. So as someone who Gale Forces a lot in Aether Raids, Flashing Blade is usually the more reliable and easier one. And you can use him as a Wings of Mercy unit who can just jump in and trigger the Gale Force. And then the Light Season, he can definitely help Ashe transform because Muarim could be beside a human opponent and still transform on turn 2, and Ashe can pretty much be beside Muarim and still transform herself. And you can also use him as an initiator by using the chip damage that he gets from his weapon productively by running Fury 4 and Fury 3. So he gets 19 chip damage per combat, and within 2 combats he can fall into the Wings of Mercy range. As an initiator, he does have some trouble triggering Gale Force, so that's why running Veluria, who can bring down his special cooldown to 2, is going to be helpful so that he can just trigger Gale Force without really using any kind of Flashing Blade when his cooldown is going to be at 2. And again, Time Pulse is going to be a big component here. So you can run a lot more Beast units if you're going to be using Muarim as your Gale Force initiator, and Veluria is going to be a very, very important support. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they're trying to build him up, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, and if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using Super Thanks or by becoming a YouTube member down below. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Muarim's transformation on turn 1 and 3. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.